Are you ready to save our kids? If children are the living messages that we send to a time that we will not see, Save Our Kids is an opportunity for you to be introduced to a few school and student helpers that will support each child's individual journey. If there is a space or a place to improve the lives of our children, we know a few families and business owners who have made it their business to answer the call for help and provide a solution to those quietly discussed challenges that impact our children and eventually us all. We could not just choose one kiddo to save, so we are asking for your help to reach more. Join Keeping Your Kids Safe as we identify some of the problems and share a few solutions that have been created just for you. Woohoo! Hello, hello. How you doing, Miss Catherine? How are you doing today?
Oh, Tabitha, it's so great to be here with you. And I have to tell you, you've done a fabulous job on that intro because it really gets the message right there that, kids are a beautiful focus.
Thank you so much for that. I made it a point to actually point out for sure the fact that at the end of the day, each child today, if you teach them how to cook when they're 5 and they get they're so encouraged by that, they can be a chef when they're 35, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just what we pour into them that is extremely important. And that is why I'm excited to talk to you today.
Well, I'm excited to talk with you because I'm just such a big fan and a big proponent of teaching life skills and coping skills and the basics, right? And I don't think everybody has to go to college. I don't think everybody. In fact, what's interesting is my daughter never finished high school. She realized she started a year later than she could have because I wanted her to be one of the older ones in the classroom. And she got to the end of her junior year and she says, I've done my research. I have enough credits to apply for college. I don't need to stay here for another year. She went a year late. She left a year early, went right into college. And, she has a master's in occupational therapy and she just started her own clinic this last January. So it's just like, you just never know. And when you encourage things and become the cheerleader instead of the traffic cop, stop, people gravitate to what interests them. And if you can help nurture that and teach people the coping skills and the life skills that are, we all have to become resilient and adaptable. And those, I think, are one of the two main skills that are, actually require lifelong development, right? Because we keep refining it. But if there's no exposure to this kind of a thing early on, it's a real tough go.
I agree. That is such a cool way to start the show. Yay! How about you, Miss Catherine? So, okay, we're going to come back to that shortly because first, thank you for Phil and Christine for sharing your time with us today. So, as we always start with, okay, if I can ever remember which way to do this. So, we always start with the reason. There's always a reason why we do the things we do. And we have to start there. Otherwise, we're just talking into the wind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to first by saying we do love our teachers, no matter what you say. So we do love our teachers and our administrators. We do not intend on being that divisive podcast that is trying to divide you from your students or your families. What we want to do and accomplish here is to provide more information that will help both the students, help students, help teachers, and the families to cohesively help students to make it to their end goal. So Ms. Catherine talked about the fact that her daughter made a different choice outside of what has been outlined for her. And so we would like to provide you enough information for you to make a different choice than what has been told you have to do. I want to put out a special thanks to our friends at Helpopedia. Helpopedia is extremely helpful for those the friends and families who need some extra support for planning your child's college, for planning for your high school journey, and also special needs families things like that. If you need help and support and you don't necessarily have a community of your own, please go ahead and scan that QR code and potentially ask questions to Phil or Laurelyn about Helpopedia and how they can help you. We're always here to make sure we understand why we're doing this. We know that 50 million children go to school every single year. It doesn't matter whether it's charter school, private school, or public school. There are homeschooling. They're all having to go to school. But what we want to share is we have choices in the educational journeys that we put our children on. Mm-hmm. And that means that we have to identify why it's important for us to be able to help and support those educational organizations who are not providing us the outcome we need and are looking for. We are looking for at least an 80 or 90% reading and math for our children. We are currently not there. If 60% of our population can read, that means 40% cannot. They can't read, they can't do math. That is a breach of a contract. You take tax money away from us to pay for schools, only to give back 40% to the population of non-readers, which turns out to be a heavier weight on society. When people can't read and can't do math, there's a lot of things that come along with that. But then why can't we get there? Sometimes it's our mind diet. Sometimes it's the things that we consume or we allow our children to consume. So here we talk about having a healthier body or having a healthier mind and all these things, but we really never discuss any of the tools necessary in order to reach that healthier way of living. Body, you can have the fittest body, but have the sickest mind. We can choose to make that change. And that's why I'm so happy to talk to Catherine today. So I'm going to give her a little bit of an opportunity to come up and talk a little bit about what she does. And thank you for joining us today.
Well, I'm delighted to be here with you, Tabitha. Thank you very much. I do what I do because nobody was talking to me about any of this stuff when I was growing up. And so the body-mind connection, the body-mind-spirit connection is a real thing. And what's fascinating is that every thought and every emotion and every action has an energetic value to it. We're energy beings, we're light beings, we're all part of this universal energy. And when you think about, you don't beat your heartbeat on your own, you don't breathe yourself, you're being fueled by this universal energy that we're all a part of. And learning what I call learning the rules of the game that we're in, makes a huge difference. And for that, every thought and every emotion, it invites and causes a chemical cocktail reaction in the body, either stress or calm, right? And I believe when people know a little bit about how their body operates, what kind of game we're playing in, and just learn the basic rules and learn to be more self-sufficient and learn how to respond versus that, knee-jerk reaction all the time and living with cortisol running through you constantly, it causes your body to break down. And we're here to nurture ourselves and to nurture each other, right? We're all connected. We're all breathing the same air. We're all made of the same energy. We may look different and we have different experiences, though we are all connected. And I think it's imperative to lift each other up.
I agree. I'm so glad you're here. So we'll go ahead and begin our conversation, right? So, Catherine, you started awesome. That story was amazing. And I wish that I could have done that for myself too, right? Because my mom would have tried to, my mom would have like, no. Because it's not normal. It's not part of the normal path that we choose, right? Mm-hmm. But kudos to your daughter because she decided that she had reached what she needed to reach and she was done.
Yep.
On my side of things, I just harassed everybody. Okay, so you taught me this. This is everything in the book. I did it. Now I want to know more. And I would just get at them for more and get more about it. But education isn't fun for many anymore. Education doesn't provide what people are looking for it to provide at the end of that rainbow. So what do you know what what made her, what prompted her, what were you feeding her, what were you encouraging her to read and understand that got her mind to say there is another option other than the one that they have chosen for me?
I think it's a mindset. I felt that one of my responsibilities in being the mom was to expose my children to as many different experiences as I could, right? To go different places. And that doesn't mean it has to be a big, extravagant trip all the time. But, let's go, spend a day in the woods. Let's go to the Air and Space Museum and see what's going on there. Let's go to the local, motorcycle museum, the flight museum. I mean, and taking care of, and teaching, kids how to swim and how to drive a boat and, drive the car. I believe that the more self-sufficient people are, the happier they are. And the more skills that we can develop, the more self-sufficient we can be. And I think that, going to different environments and learning different things allows a person to develop an ease in looking at things from different perspectives. And I think that is a beautiful way to be, because when people get so set in their ways, and this is the only way to look at something, it's pretty limiting and it's confining. And that's not how life is. We're not meant to not change, right? Right? We're not meant to not change. And because we're in this universal energy and it's an upward spiral that's always in motion. And if you're not, the way I describe it to people is the train is always leaving the station. And are you on the train or are you not? Right? Yep. Are you stuck there in the station and okay, the delivery truck and there's nothing for lunch. So it's just like, okay, that was not a good move.
It's not it.
Right.
What I find very interesting is that, one, people always talk about mindset, but everyone gets stuck in fixed and growth, right? There's a little bit more to that. And I think early on, I was extremely offended by people who did not understand that. Don't come to me and say, you need to change your mindset. It's not that I need to change my mindset. I think it's more, I think since I've met you, it's not mindset fix and growth. That's not it. That's just the foundation. Right. You have to continue to build on that. So it's what we consume over time. Our children are products of that, right? Because what happens when you sit them in front of these first of all, I'm not about to sing this one song. There's a song that as soon as you hear it, it's just terrible. It's like an earworm forever. But I just don't. So you can see them dancing those dances and singing those songs, because what we have done is we allowed them to consume that content. Now, if that content goes off the rails, then what they're consuming becomes how they start to live their lives in a way that is not conducive to the growth that you anticipate for the child, for anyone. And so I think a lot of times people are not paying attention to what that child is. So when we talk about screen time, right? For example, your child is always has a growth mindset until you tell them not to. That's what I know. Until you tell a child there are no other options and you have to stay stuck right here and you're not allowed to choose anything else, just ride on this railroad track and this railroad track only. That's when they stop. So children are always in a growth place. They're in a place to consume and absorb and absorb and absorb and then apply, right? So screen time, they're saying maximum should be about an hour a day, if that, right? An hour a day. So in an hour, how much they can consume, and then how are they going to apply that later? But when you have 4 hours of trash, which is not teaching them their language, not teaching them math skills, not teaching them how to communicate with one another, now you have actually started to wilt that opportunity for them to consume and absorb things that are going to be helpful to their lives. We're helping them to consume things that are going to be hurtful, because they won't learn math, they don't learn how to communicate, and all the kids are doing this instead of looking at you in your eyes or being able to form complete sentences. So what are your thoughts around that?
Well, we're social beings, right? And we're meant to interact with each other. And the other thing to keep in mind too is that there is that natural negative bias in the mind, right? Always waiting for the shoe to drop. What is the tiger coming around the corner? You know, how far away is that tiger? And we have different stressors now than what was happening how many, thousands of years ago, right? And we have more choices now. And much of this comes down to choice
Mm-hmm.
because the amount of time that is spent on a screen is a choice,
Mm-hmm.
and the content is a choice. When you think of everything that's out there, and when you think of things, I like to think of things on an energetic value. It takes some of the emotional sting out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when someone is yelling at you or yelling at the neighbor, that's pretty negative, and that's a low vibrational energy, but that's the neural pathway that's being built, right? And so when people get into yelling and pointing the finger and blaming, and everybody's against them and all of this, that is the way that the mind has chosen, because that's been the programming, right? And when you think about that path through the woods and you keep walking that same path, and the path gets a little deeper and a little deeper and a little well trodden there, and it gets wider and deeper, that's what happens in your mind, and that's what you gravitate to, right? The research shows that we think anywhere between 18,000 and 70,000 thoughts in just one day, and about 90% of those are the same as the day before and the day before and the day before, and how many weeks ago, how many years ago, and those things over time become beliefs. And when we don't take the time to evaluate what it is we're thinking, what we're feeling, and the other part of that too is, because of the chemical cocktail reactions in the body from these thoughts and emotions, the body gets addicted to these things, right? And it's habit. And so the body almost is in the show as far as inviting more of that same reaction, because it's like, hey, I like cortisol, right? and but when you think about it, the cells are in there going, no, we don't want more cortisol, right?
I know.
Right.
Right.
And so it's important to think about these things because we do have a choice. It isn't always easy
Mm-hmm.
to break those habits. In order to make a new habit, it takes dedication, it takes focus, it takes making the choice to do that, but also knowing that we have the opportunity to improve our life experience, and what's fascinating too is that law of attraction is always in play. It's a sub law of the law of vibration. And so what you're putting out is a lot of what you're getting back, because that's the vibration that you're on, right? And if you want to have a higher level experience, and you're down in the ditch blaming people for not being there, you're not going to get there that way.
Yeah. So you bring up these really good points. So I'm going to go back and touch on a couple of them, right? One is I like the fact you're talking about the trench or even the ditch, right? So at the end of the day, if we find ourselves, if we're digging our own graves, right, we have to dig 6 feet under. If for those folks who are not 6 feet, by the time you reach one point of the digging this ditch, you should recognize you're going to have a little bit of a trouble getting out because you're digging 6 feet down and you're maybe 5 feet. That means that now you're going to struggle a little bit more to dig out of that. Now imagine that being 18 years of digging that ditch,
Mm-hmm.
and you're digging in the same area. And so you're digging deeper and deeper. Now you need a ladder, or you need something else they're going to get out, or you need somebody to throw you a lifeline. But when people throw you a lifeline, you can't be mad at the person who throws the line. You gotta know, you gotta take some responsibility.
Yeah.
Maybe not all of it, okay?
Mhm.
Because the children don't have choices. And that's the one thing I think that a lot of us forget. These little people are little people with undeveloped brains and
Mhm.
not ready to take the weight of all decisions, right?
Mhm. Right.
So they can't be held responsible for all of the decisions that were made on their behalf.
Mhm.
And so you're digging ditches for people, for children, and now they're having to figure out
Mhm.
how to get out of it. And that is because our story, you're making it inevitable for them to replay over and over again.
Mhm.
And there are so many different options. You don't have to dig that same ditch. You can dig a trench that's about 2 feet deep and longer, which
Mhm.
gives you a different journey, of course, right? But a lot of people don't look at it that way. And I bring come back to the cigarette thing, right?
Mm.
I
Mhm.
grew up in a time where they were like, "Don't smoke. Smoke will kill you." Meanwhile, my grandma's smoking like multiple packs of cigarettes a day, all this stuff. And then we have people around me who began to smoke too. And they're like, "Well, why don't you smoke?" Because first of all, it's nasty. I don't want that. I don't want that close to me. But it didn't change the fact that many of the people around me,
Yeah.
because of the fact that cigarettes were equated to a fun time and socially accepted, and it was a stress reliever.
Mhm.
So right then and there, if depending on where you're coming from, you automatically have stress. And now children are following those examples, and we continue to do that over and over again for them. And so then we tell them, correct your mind, correct what is happening. But 18 years or even 6 years of dumping your ideas on them, how do they come out from underneath that in order to
Mhm.
be better?
Mhm.
Now that's where you come into play, right?
Well, right. I think it's really important to understand the listening piece of things because absolutely, what you say is true in that people mimic what they see, what they hear, what they learn, and people do what they know. And so a household that is a depressive household, it's difficult to be the one that comes out of that
Hmm.
as being the happy one, right?
True.
And it is, I mean, it can be done. It takes an awful lot of work, and it doesn't typically happen while you're there.
Correct.
And that comes into, understanding about environment too, right? And this whole study of epigenetics about how our body, how we react to our environment is what influences how our genes operate. And so it is everything is interconnected, right?
Right.
And so I think it's really important to realize that everything that you say, everything that you think, everything that you do has an impact not
Mhm.
only on you, the people around you.
Yes. Hmm.
And I think it's important to understand that. Um, it's it's very interesting in that the number of people that they don't want to talk about anything. It's like, I don't want any conflict. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to have this conversation. And it actually backfires because it doesn't allow for free expression. And if there's no meaningful dialogue, if there's no meaningful interaction, no meaningful exchange, nothing changes.
Right.
Then people start shutting down and they think that they have no option, that they don't have a choice
Yep.
because they're not encouraged to say, hey, what's bothering you?
Yeah. That's a big thing. And so that's why I spoke to a principal before. And I remember I was like, I asked the question because I have test anxiety. So I don't, and I'm open about it now. I wasn't so open about it when I was going through all of that education. I was struggling, but a special teacher took notice, and he was like, this is not this, I know you know the information, let me help you figure out a way to get you to be able to convey it back to me, right? And so that took a very special person to see that I was greater than what a test was telling them, right?
Mhm.
The other part of that is that if he could have helped me with the not mindset, let's be very clear, that freaking thing is a trigger warning. But you know how many times I threatened to punch somebody for telling me to change my mindset? I was like, are you serious? Ready to fight, right?
That's funny.
Change, just take a look at how you see things. Look at it from a different perspective. Like I've said to you before, if we have 360 degrees in a circle, there's at least 359
Yes.
other perspectives to the same situation.
Mhm.
And we have to be ready to acknowledge that, right? And
Mhm.
so they would just go in, not mindset, it's you have to take a look at what can you do, more mindfulness. That's what it is.
Yes.
So I said, why is it that you know that there is a lot of anxiety in the room due to home life, due to school, whatever that child is dealing with? But why are we not taking, if it's 3 to 5 minutes for you to take attendance, why are you not using that 3 to 5 minutes to center
Yes.
and relax those students so that they can prepare to consume what you are giving them in education for that day? But what I was met with was somebody else's opinion or perspective to why it cannot and should not be done. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. If you are here to educate and teach, then why would you not teach them how to relax and be more mindful, not in the sense of be respectful of other people's space, things like that, but understand to calm, not quiet, not shut it down,
Right.
calm the system so it can receive the information and be prepared to move forward. If I think that if they did a lot of that, more of that for before testing, their testing scores would improve. Now, that being said, because I just heard it for myself, I'm asking people to do something that they don't want to do because it's not financially conducive to them. So it takes choice out of the family's hands, right? But schools don't want to make a different choice because leadership says that financially it's better for the child to be in chaos or in constant flux than it is for them to be calm and ready to receive, so that their grades can be higher, so that they will have a better opportunity to get the job or the position or the degree that they want to have. So what is it that we need to say to educators, or can we do it at home? Can the parents do it at home to help them to learn skills, to be able to bring more mindfulness to their space so that they can be better educated by people who may not have their best interests at heart?
That's so fascinating to me because what you were talking about seems so ass backwards to me. Like, what?
I don't get
And
it.
and so, oh, I know. I'm a big proponent. I'm a big teacher of mindfulness. Um, and and it's so simple, right? Because when we are more present, that's the space to be able to take the actions. And when you're calm, you have a knowing of what action is best to take.
Yes.
And when you're in the chaos and whatnot, there's rarely a good decision that comes from that. And so when people can, and what the beauty of mindfulness is that it does not take a lot of time. It's developing a habit. And it goes back to the ultimate mind diet, right? What you choose to think influences how you feel, and in turn influences how you operate. And I teach everybody that when you take in a deep breath, you engage the vagus nerve. That's cranial nerve number 10. and it's connected to almost every organ in your body. It's important to know about that. And when you engage that vagus nerve, you take in that deep breath, that invites the calming side of your nervous system to engage. And when you make a practice of this, and I encourage people to actually put a little reminder on their phone and do 6 or 7 practice breaths, deep breathing breaths, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day to create the habit. Because then when somebody starts to get anxious, you go, oh, the breath. Right? And you also know that you're doing something physiologically. And when you're calm, you allow so much more creativity to emerge.
Yeah.
And learning is so much about creativity and understanding and learning different ways to look at things. I was really floored not too long ago. My grandson, who's 10, was talking about something that he was learning in school. And as soon as I started listening to it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like junior high school, right? When I was in school. And how many years ago was that, right? So it's just like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And I mean, when I went to college, there was no cell phone, there was no computer. And, I was born in the mid-50s. And so it's just like, why is this kid having to learn all this stuff? You can look that up on the internet in 2 seconds, and you could be learning how to build a bridge, right? You could be learning how to build a birdhouse. You could be learning how to do something that's constructive. You could be learning, how the atoms are put together. All of these wonderful things that can actually be contributors.
Yes.
Instead of time wasters.
Mm-hmm. And now you understand, save our kids. Because at the end of the day, when I started looking at it, my kid, I kept saying, hey, I would give her a simple math problem and she'd be like, oh my God. And I was like, what is happening? I need to write my congressman. I need my money back for your education. You didn't pay for my education. Oh, yes, I did. And what I expected in return is not this. So Google is here. Okay. So Dr. Google doesn't have all the answers, and ChatGPT doesn't either. They're just, it's just a library of information being pulled forward to display to you because of the question you asked, right? But the point about that is that make sure that what you are giving them, what you're educating them with, is something that they will be able to use in conjunction with ChatGPT, in conjunction with Google. It should not be that you're sending them down a path that's not going to be fruitful for them at the end. We've planted a tree. That's our children. That tree has to be fed and watered. When you do not feed it, you do not water it properly, it starts to die. It's restrictive. It doesn't know which direction to go. It's looking for the sun, but there's always this dark cloud hanging over it. So then it feels like maybe it's only supposed to live in the darkness. That's what we're doing to our children, because we're not even allowing them to be creatives. We got people out here that can do lots of other stuff, but they're being crammed into these spaces and being choked and their food is being taken away because I sought more information. I sought out education. My instructors, I'm going to tell you, they were like, oh my God, stop. I was like, forget you. If you're not going to teach me, I'll go teach myself. So then I started picking up books and I started reading and applying. And that's how I was able to continue my education. But if you're that frustrated with someone who had a thirst for knowledge, I can't imagine. And that was, some years ago, not in the 50s, but you do look lovely, lady. It was at a time, if they were that frustrated then, the level of impatience that I see in education now is exactly why our children are not very excited about education and they're struggling. And I'm concerned. I'm very concerned because there are more ways to teach a child to do anything and everything besides the way that the way that has been outlined. This is okay, Phil, yes, the train tracks, right? Train tracks for parents also exist, train tracks for the educational leaders. We are stuck in a system that says this is the only way and the only track towards the end of the goal, which is employment. So however you get there, we're just going to run these tracks, and we're going to run them every year, same way, same back channel, different conductors every once in a while, but with the same model, with no opportunity to change. So what are you saying? You're saying to everyone that you're educating who have come through the system and who has turned around and said, whew, we survived that, but oh my gosh, I feel bad for the rest of the behind us, right? That shouldn't be the case. And we have to look to change it. So I keep saying, I know people are going to be like, oh my gosh, 11 million children. You remove 11 million children from the 50 million children to go to school every single school year. At that point, they will have no choice but to look at what changes have to be made in order to bring the bodies back into their systems. You can't continue down the same path. This is the definition of an insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, I didn't get the education I want, so I'm just going to drop my kids and maybe they'll get a better one. What? No. We want to try something different, and I think it's time, and now is the time. Matt Barnes talked about the fact that there are families that are coming together and they're pulling their children out of public schools and they are educating them amongst themselves and are reaping higher benefits than the institutions that they went to. You have other families. I know one that pulled a bunch of parents together and created their own school in Ohio. So I just want to say there are always options. Like you said, there are always options, even as you've dug that ditch and you're now 18 years in or 10 years into digging that ditch. Even though when you look to each side, you notice, man, these walls, they're not getting any wider unless I dig them out. Or how do I get out of this? You can choose. There are choices in there. You can stop digging. How about that? I vote for stop digging. Can you stop digging? Just stop digging. And then after that, start taking down the walls in a way that gives you a pathway up out of it to see the light. Because there's only one thing in life we know for sure to be true. Change. With or without you, change will happen. And if you're not with it, you will be run over by it. Or you will be a bystander who will not benefit from the change. Well, you get to choose whether you're a part of it or whether you're just going to stand by and watch and see if it's going to work. But no matter what, the new sun comes up and the new moon comes up every single day. And the one thing we can only control is the choices that we make for how we respond to that at the end of the day.
And the beauty of realizing that is, I mean, and really realizing it, all of this contributes to the way a life moves along, right? And yesterday I was doing a little research in not necessarily just in regard to children, but in health in general. And the arena of autoimmune disease is really mushrooming. And I was reading an article by Dr. Anna Marie Obai, who is at the Arthritis Center at Johns Hopkins. And in her article, it referenced that, there are 23.5 million Americans, just Americans, that have autoimmune issues. And so that led me to another article from NIH, from the Institute of Environmental Health Services. And their figure that they refer to is 50 million Americans. But they both agree that it's nearly 80% of these numbers that are women, that are female. And so when you look at the health system, when you look at the educational system, when you look at the political system, all of this contributes.
Yes.
And let's think about that. So let's think about how we react to our environment and what we're choosing our environments to be like.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about incorporating mindfulness into an educational day and doing a little mindfulness at home and doing things that we can do to allow us to be more creative and to look at things from different perspectives. And, like, for instance, you and I may disagree on something. You are looking at it from your point of view, and there's value in that.
Yep.
I'm looking at it from my point of view, and there's value in that. So if we don't exchange that information, how are we ever going to know, right?
Or grow. Because I believe that so friction actually creates enough heat in order to encourage a change. And I think a lot of people don't like the friction. I am not confrontational, but I do not back down from a fight. The goal there is that I will stand on the square of my understanding and of what I believe until you can show me how my beliefs are harming me and others around me. Today, we know that education does not work and that we are taking for granted the existence of our children. We take for granted that they're just here so they'll just grow. That's not true. If you don't feed it and you don't feed it the right foods, it will not grow properly. Everything will grow but eventually die. Your life expectancy will reduce by the stuff that you feed. If you don't have a good watering system, you're going to have a problem. So if you just take it into a plant situation, the plants have the dirt has bugs in it that feed the soil and do all kinds of things. And Lord knows, one day I'm gonna have to ask God, why do we have certain bugs? Because some of them were not necessarily very nice, right?
Right.
But they all do. They're all there, part of an ecosystem to allow the plant to grow. Okay, so that's all of us. We're in the dirt. We're the community. We're the parents. We're the school. We're all of that, and our product is the growth of that child, which we can equate to a tree or some type of beautiful plant. We don't always know how much is going to blossom and what it's going to blossom into truly be. But if we feed it garbage, it will not blossom into what we want it to be or what we imagine it could be. It will blossom into what it has been restricted to believe. And that is the thing that I want to make sure that people understand. I, for myself, would tell my children, you can't say can't is a stopper. You're not allowed to tell me you can't do it. Right. So then when it was that time, they would be mad at me. I can't do it. Absolutely. Because you automatically made the decision you cannot do it. And so you will not move forward. She's like, that's not true. I said, answer the question. When you said I can't do it, what did you do next? She said nothing. I said, exactly. It stops you from moving.
Yeah.
So stop using that word. Use, I'm having a hard time figuring it out. I don't know how to get there. I don't understand the assignment. You can say anything else, but as soon as you say can't, pay attention to your body language because it immediately stops moving forward. So just being able to tell your children that they can do what they want to do within reason. Don't just give these blanket statements without any context. Go and vote, but where? Local, where are we doing? But you have to be very clear in the messaging for those children. So you want to tell them you can do anything you want to do can be accomplished through proper planning, Phil. Anything you want to do will take the right community, Kristen, right? You have people, so go and find your community that's gonna feed you what is necessary in order for you to blossom into who you want and anticipate to be in your life. And the other gift I've given my children, if I am in your way, remove me from the path. Let me know you are causing me to not be able to grow into the person that I'm supposed to be. And I will by far, if I am in it for your best interest, I will move to the side and allow you to do what you're supposed to do. That's the gift I've given mine because I want to go and do great things, but I'm afraid to leave you behind. I was like, please leave me behind. That's the goal.
Yeah.
That is what's supposed to happen. Do not stay where I am. I got here, and now it's your time with the baton to run as far and as fast as you possibly can
Yep.
to your next destination. And I'll reach there too. I will
Mhm.
eventually get there. But if you wait for me, I'll pull you down. And that's not what I want. And that's why for Save Our Kids, I feel like the adults, get your ego out the room. It doesn't belong in here anymore.
Right.
We our bumpers have been up for so long, and we forgot to take them down. We forgot to give them the freedom to have that critical thought, have that independent thought, and nurture that to the point where they're able to go off and do something bigger and better than
Mhm.
what I was able to accomplish. Because I knew I was only going to get but so far, just like everybody else. We're only going to get as far as we can for the time we have, and then we pass the baton on to the next person so that they can run the race further. And then at the end of it, you're still remembered. You're just remembered as the one that passed the baton to the next group who was able to progress and propel that family or that education forward. But if you're stagnating these kids the way that they're doing now, we are destined to be pushed into a mass grave. I believe that's where we're going.
Well, what's so interesting about what you're talking about is that I work with a population in the healthcare system. And it's interesting to me, the number of people that come into this facility. Many of them are, early 20s, late 20s, without any coping skills or really understanding any life skills. Never really had any exposure to, the things that we're talking about today, right? And it's been a very interesting process for me, and I'm learning a lot, and it supports what I'm studying. Talk about being a lifelong learner. I'm back in school, and I'm in a master's to PhD program in integrative medicine, which is a very holistic program, and that's based out of Quantum University in Hawaii. And it's very much about the mindfulness and seeing the person as a whole person and not a diagnosis, right? Yes. And I think that type of perspective is really a valuable perspective to have, because if I see you as just one of those women with black hair, I don't see that beautiful glow that you have about you.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it's really important to also do some self-evaluation, all of us, right? Because if we're not evaluating what our beliefs are and what our thoughts are doing to ourselves and others, and what our actions are doing to ourselves and others, then we're not in what's really healthy, right? And we're all a part of nature, and nature's all about procreation and expansion,
right?
And those old habits don't serve.
And I think a lot of people feel afraid mm-hmm. to make a different choice, right? Mm-hmm. So my mom taught me this. So this is all I can do, because I don't want to hurt her feelings by not continuing this bad behavior on to the next generation. Or I learned this in school and it seemed like the best thing to do, so I continue to do it. But when something new comes out, you don't attempt to try to do something different. Mm-hmm. So you're actually dating yourself and keeping yourself stuck in a place where you're not meant to be. Right. So I think a lot of families, a lot of children need to understand that we're doing the best we can as we're caring for you to make it to 18, because our number one goal is for your survival to 18. So we're off the hook. We're off the hook. Because by the age of 18, then you can make your own decisions, and I can no longer be charged with doing harm to a minor, right? Mm-hmm. So Because that's ultimate. Because when you don't feed your kids, somebody's coming in to tell you how horrible of a parent you are. But if you're doing all the right things, they make it to 18, you're educating them and everything like that. They're able to go out there and sustain life without you. Because our goal as parents is, yeah, they make it to 18, but they need to be able to be self-sustaining.
Mhm.
They need to be able to know how to make a decision that is good for them, and not the decision just because it's passed down from generation to generation or from the previous manager to you, and you know it doesn't serve the population, but you continue to apply it.
Mhm.
That's like walking up to someone and saying, well, they used to use a whip, crack the whip for the horses, or they used to smack people and like beat people with the whip. So we should bring that back.
Mhm.
That's just crazy and stupid. Let's just call it what it is.
Mhm.
Dumb. Don't keep holding on to things that are doing nothing but doing harm just because you feel like I just don't want to try and learn something new. Because that's all we're here to do, is to expand. And it's more than just procreate. It's
Oh,
learning more, right?
yeah. Yeah. The expansion applies to everything, right? Yeah.
So people only want to stay there.
Yeah, what you learn, how to improve the choices that you make. It's astounding to me when I see people in the grocery store and some of the things that they buy, because it's not good for them, and it's almost as if you think that they would know that it's not good for them either.
Yeah, some of
So
them know.
is it a habit? Is it lack of exposure? Is it convenience? Right? Because it's pretty convenient to keep going down the same road all the time.
Right. This is true.
You don't learn much that way.
Not at all. But one of the things I did learn about food is this: if food doesn't die, it's not real. So I'm not going to tell you the brand I got rid of, but all of those snack cakes and all of those things never came in that house once I heard that. And that was, my kids were really little. They might have been about 6 or 7. And I was like, no more of these. And I just tossed them, and not, losing their minds. And I was like, oh, we're going to get over it, because we're not coming back to this. Because once we've determined that food doesn't die, then, and it's not real, then you're going to have to find something else that's going to curve that, right? So chips is a good one. Chips is potatoes, right? But the way that they process them, not necessarily the best for us. So what we realized, what I learned, and I'm pretty sure you can correct me if I'm incorrect in this, the body is looking for the crunch. So in order to serve the crunch, which is normally potato chips, try a carrot or celery, because it actually supplies the same noise that the body is looking for, and it's a healthier option other than the one which is the one that's more convenient, which is the chips. That's also part of the consumption route. If your children grow up only consuming things that are healthy to ingest in their bodies, they're less likely to go out and get into other foods that are not healthy for their bodies. So if you're pouring in garbage in education, we're going to get out garbage and participation in life. So as we go ahead and wrap up, Catherine, we're going to bring you up forward so you can say your final piece and let people know about you, because Umi and everybody needs to know that Catherine Chadwick will help you. And I believe that your mindfulness, because the sunshine quotient should be something all children lean into and recognize.
Well, that was why I developed it, because what's fascinating is the sunshine quotient as a term came to me as a download. And right around the time I received a diagnosis of Lyme disease, and I was super, super sick. And I was like, oh, okay, what is the sunshine quotient, right? And so it's a term that refers to lighting gradients in photography and radiology. And I'm like, oh, because we're light beings, right? And so I started using it with myself, applying it to myself, that concept of being a light being and working with visualizing, breathing in the light. and the light is healing me, and I'm glowing from the inside out, and I'm incorporating it with breath work. And by the time I got done with 8 months, a PICC line, 2 rounds of IV antibiotics, but a huge increase in mindfulness work and visualization work. When I got done with all of that, all my blood work showed that there was no evidence that I'd ever even had Lyme disease. And I was just like, okay. Kids need to understand about the vagus nerve. They need to understand how to self-regulate. They need, and it's just so simple. And so, yeah, I took Uni Umi from Universal Illumination. Uni Umi is your sunshine ambassador, right? And I always have a little Uni Umi with me. This is Uni Umi, right?
Yes.
And Uni Umi is just so darn cute and loves to teach you about the vagus nerve and about thinking with intention, right? Today I am. And learning a little bit about how we operate. So yes, I thank you for the opportunity to talk about Uni Umi. I love talking about Uni Umi. And it doesn't matter how old you are, right? The concept is highly valuable.
This is true. I thank you very much for hanging out with us today, because I think there was definitely an important conversation to be had. I think in a lot of cases, I think that we can go another route, but what we consume is definitely something that needs to be taken into consideration. Mm-hmm. And children are little people who are doing nothing but absorbing everything we do. So we have to be willing to make a change or do something different in order for us to see a better outcome. I want my children to be I want my daughter to be a better woman than me. And I want my son to be a better man than his father. That should be every single one of our hopes. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, we actually have to make a change to what they are currently consuming. And that means education too. Yep. So I'm not very good about promoting myself, so I'm going to try this again. Please like and subscribe to the channel above. Scan that QR code. Keeping your kids safe we are here. We're here to help you keep your kids safe, because at the end of the day, your child's health and well-being, regardless of situation, whether it's in school, out of school, we are here to support you. And we have a customizable solution that will help your school, your community, make sure that your child does not befall nefarious behaviors. So, as always, I'd like to say thank you very much for spending your hour with us, because you had a choice. Thank you, Phil and Kristen and Therese and all the ones, and Joe, who showed up to show us love. And as always, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week. Same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest, like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message.